Alrighty, folks, we are live, I believe. If you're tuning in on the replay, please just drop a quick comment to say hashtag replay so we can know that you are here. More and more of you are doing that, which is awesome. And it's really helpful for me to see who's coming in, tuning in, watching the replay, and getting all of the insights from these live streams, these episodes that we're doing live. Now, I'm just going to do a very quick check to make sure that this is working, and it currently is working, so that is awesome. If you're coming in live, welcome, folks. I've got a very, very exciting episode today. Somebody I've been following for a long time, and I'm excited to get them on the screen, talk to them, chat to them, and get some of their knowledge for all of you guys. It's a fellow youngster, I would say. It's quite funny because I've for quite a long time I've always felt like I'm the young person, and I've found somebody who is younger than me and is making waves in the world, which is very, very cool. So I can see you guys are tuning in. Hey Annabelle, hey Killian, thank you for the compliment there in the studio. Yeah, it's been a fun ride trying to get this place uh all set up, and the lighting set up and the equipment and all of that fun stuff. It's in the end, what I just did is I got one of my friends, a guy called Craig Greg, to come in and set up for me because I'm no expert in all this stuff. And I would literally spend hours and hours trying to get this all set up and probably not do it very well. So I thought it'd be best just to pay someone to come in and do it for me. But I appreciate that. So, folks, I am just going to get this party started and get the podcast intro going. This is going to be really, really fun. So I'm going to get this party started. Then I'm going to bring our guest onto the screen for you guys today, and stick around because this is going to be fun. So let me hit record. Hey everybody, you are listening to the Funnels and Growth Show. My name is Gavin Bell, and I've discovered a little bit of a problem. Too many entrepreneurs are great at what they do, but they never see true growth. All too often, they rely on luck, hustle, and hope to grow their business, which, as you probably know, isn't the best marketing strategy. So in this show, I aim to uncover the secrets around creating a marketing system that allows you to build your audience, generate more leads, and acquire customers at a profit. Now, on today's show, we have someone who I've been following for some time now, over on the old LinkedIn. This guy is honestly making waves. He's been featured in Forbes, Entrepreneur, Men's Health, and more. And he's also the host of the Growth Mindset University podcast, a show that's ranked number 6 on Apple's self-improvement category, amongst ranking really highly on pretty much every other category around education and how to and all of those fun things. He's the founder of Trend Up Media, a podcasting agency, and believes life is all about not making a living, but designing a life. So please, everybody, help me introducing today's guest, I should say, Jordan Paris.
Hey, Gavin.
Welcome to the show, Jordan.
Yeah, man. It's hope is not a strategy. I say that all the time. I love that you mentioned that in the intro. And thanks for having me.
It is an absolute pleasure. Let's start with that. Hope is not a strategy. So, and the people that you work with, do you feel that most people rely on hope, or do you feel that most people actually have a strategy?
Well, I think I find a lot of people our age, they rely on hope, in that, I see something on Twitter like from someone our age, hoping for a change. And I'm like, don't hope for a freaking change. Like, go make the change. Plan to make a change. Go do it. Don't just hope and pray. Hope, while essential, is not a strategy all by itself. It is a strategy. It's just a really poor strategy all by itself.
Yeah, totally. We've just wrapped up a 5-day challenge with over 500 business owners, and on the first day of the challenge, we get them to audit their business. And we found that one of the tasks is, can you go in and find your source of business? Where do your customers come from? We found that the majority of them were, had no strategy, relying on hope in order to get their customers, relying on word of mouth referrals. And so many of them just had this
moment. Disaster. A word of mouth business is a business that is not doing well. There are the exceptions for certain. I can think of them right now, but a lot of people that just rely on referrals really aren't, and I know them. I know these business owners, they're really not doing well, and they wish they had more business.
Totally. I mean, word of mouth is great. Referrals are great. It's not a great way it's not a good method to rely on
It's
to grow the business.
the power is in the other people's hands. I like to make it more predictable. I like to know that I can add $24,000 in annual recurring revenue by the end of the month for a fact. Like I know that for certain. You know what I mean? I don't want to like, oh, I think probably a couple of people, I'll get some inbound leads and I think I'll probably close them. And no, I mean, yeah, you get those sometimes, but I like to make it a lot more predictable.
Totally. I hope I get those leads. Hope I do.
Yeah.
So let's just go like straight into what you do. And I guess, and I could be, you might prove me wrong here, but I guess this is one of the main things that allows you to grow your business with predictability, which is your podcast. And looking at the people that you have interviewed on your show is pretty spectacular. You've had James Altucher, Seth Godin, Dean Graziosi, Grant Cardone, Robert Greene. Like these are big ass names, which is awesome. So my first question is, if you were to take every single interview that you've ever done, what would be? Is there one lesson that you could take away from all of those?
No, I never know how to answer that, Gavin. I never know. Seriously, like it's I mean, it's almost it's impossible. I don't know where I'd go with that. Like yeah. I mean, there's different things that I pick up from everyone. But one thing, boiling it down to one thing, that's what everyone wants. Everyone wants like a formula, a sexy, like, you just got to do X, Y, and Z. And this is the one thing. This will change your life. There's not really ever one thing. It's a lot of things. There's a compounding effect between all those things. Know what I mean?
Yeah, I like it. But in terms of your personal life, it doesn't have to be one main thing that you've taken away from all the interviews, but is there one thing that somebody has said, or not necessarily one thing, that's maybe the wrong way to put it, but when I think about the people that I interview, there are things where I go, that really resonated with me.
Mm-hmm.
Or somebody said that, and I'm totally making this up, but maybe somebody said, in fact, no, I'm not making this up. First thing that comes to my head here is I interviewed somebody called Brooke Evans, who's an amazing sales coach, and she made the point that you should look at who your niche, or the people that you in your qualification of leads when it comes to closing sales, is don't just look at the niche and don't just look at the type of business and maybe revenue that they make, but look at things like their personality. Do they have the right personality to work with you? Are they a decision maker, for example? That was one thing that I can pick out from lots and lots of different lessons, where I was like, that is something that I've gone and I've implemented into the business. So when you think back to some of your interviews, what are some of the things that you've been like, that's something that I've immediately implemented, or that's something I've immediately tried to do or started?
I'm telling you, I mean, look, there's a lot of things, but I've been sitting there trying to think of something like, when you have to think of something, that's like the one time you can't think of it. Like give me a direction, like give me a guess, and I can tell you what I learned from that guess. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, let's take somebody like Robert Greene.
Oh, good.
Somebody who's like
I got it.
Big picture thinker.
Yeah.
What about him?
Yeah. So, and he talks about this in his book, The Laws of Human Nature. You can see up top there, the red one. Yeah, there. And it's called Deciphering the Shadow, that section, the dark side, so to say. You can tell a lot about someone by looking at their emphatic traits. Are they maybe they have they're overly aggressive. They have this extreme show of bravado, and and they're extreme virtue signalers. Virtue signalers in 2020, extreme virtue signalers are rampant in 2020. Think about that. But generally, under these overly emphatic traits rests the opposite trait. Under these, and this is the example Robert Greene used, and this is back in March. This was before a lot of things happened. You think of social justice warriors. They're all always on the right side of things, always so morally superior and right and correct and politically correct and they're full of love and virtue. But generally, under a lot of these social justice warriors rests a lot of hatred and pent up aggression and anger. And if you disagree with them, they will absolutely destroy your life and make your life miserable. And so I think about that every day. I look to, I think of somebody in my life who, his go-to line is, "Oh, I'll beat the shit out of you." Like whenever he feels threatened. This is a big guy too. It's a big guy that you wouldn't want to mess with. But he always goes to that. And everybody knows that this guy is actually extremely insecure. Under that show of aggression and toughness is extreme insecurity. So you can tell a lot about someone by their emphatic traits.
I like that. And I think that kind of reminds me of How to Win Friends and Influence People, in terms of just generally reading people. I think maybe too often in this day and age, we look at that face value. I don't know if I want to use the term emotion, but that face value bravado that you talk about, I'll kick you in type thing, as opposed to looking at what's that actually mean. And I think one of the best examples of that is maybe looking at Instagram and all the pictures that people are putting on, like all my money and all my women and all this. Deep down, it's all
people posting captions with happy.
Yeah.
The people that are happy are not posting captions saying happy. Yes. Seriously, like they're not doing that. I bet I'd wager to bet that those are the most miserable people. Totally. And I was talking about this with a friend yesterday. I bet if you were to run some sort of study on the quality of relationships and how often a couple posts themselves on Instagram, I bet you would see the couples that post themselves the most on Instagram are the least happy. Bet my life.
Yeah.
I don't know what measurables you'd use, but
I'm totally with you on that.
The happiest couples aren't like post each other once a year.
They don't need to.
No, they don't need to prove to people like that they're happy together and that their relationship is awesome. The same way a rich person doesn't need to tell people that they're rich.
Yes, exactly. I was having this conversation about you get these bars that you pay a membership to go into the bar, and then you also have to pay for your drinks after the membership. And
never heard of that.
Yeah, neither did I. And then I was having this conversation, and I was like, rich people aren't going to feel like they actually need to buy this membership to buy the drinks, because they don't care about the status. The people that are buying that is the people that want to buy it, so they have the status to make them look like they're rich. But truly rich people can just see past that, because they go,
yes,
your business makes no money, but you're spending what, thousands on a membership?
Yes.
Like, yeah. Not for me. So, anyway, I love that lesson from Robert Greene, and so thanks for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good one. So you're a young dude. We're both young dudes. I don't like to necessarily talk about age, but I think it's relevant here, because I want to ask you about your concept of designing a life, which is a big concept. It's a big thing when you think about like how people live their life in terms of, most people go and make a living. You're saying design a life, which is a very different thing. Where does the drive come from you personally?
just want to enjoy my life. There's more to life than paying bills. Seriously, like
Where's that
it's more
spark
to
come
it.
from? Like, if you think back, where does it come from? Because not everybody has that.
Hmm. I don't want people telling me what to do. I don't want. I mean, it just goes back to my ego and my narcissistic traits that I just don't take orders well. I don't at all. So I knew very early on that, like 18 years old, that just wasn't going to work for me with a normal corporate job where everything is dependent on other people. My promotion, my firing, it on any random day hinges upon other people. I don't like to give other people. I'm the complete control narcissist that Robert Greene talks about in The Laws of Human Nature. Like, that's me. Not to the degree that Joseph Stalin was, obviously, but I definitely have a lot of those traits. So yes, it comes from that and just wanting to have the ball in my court at all times.
So what was school like for you?
College or high school? Because they're very different. Very different.
Let's go college.
Yeah. Well, I mean, high school. Well, high school, I was for context, I was totally like a loser. I only had one friend. College, completely different. I was popular for the first time in my life. Right. It was a really cool thing. But I did a lot of things. I was I was president of my residence hall. I was my first year. I was a college athlete for 2 years, first 2 years, and I was in a fraternity. So I had friends from every sphere of campus. And 100% of the time after my first year of college, once I realized it was a bunch of BS, and that it really wasn't worth my time to study and read these stupid books filled with regurgitated theory, 100% of the time, I was on my computer in class. And I mean, the times that I did go to class, I was on my computer 100% of the time, just building my business, whatever business that was at the time. Cause it changed over the years. And yeah, the goal was the whole way to not have to get a job after college. And I did that, made that happen.
Awesome. And the reason I asked that question is purely probably a narcissistic one on my front, in that it's a very similar story, and there's not that many people that I know that have that story of being very young age hating authority.
Yeah, right. Disdain for authority. Yeah, inherent.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Which is funny how it then leads into being a business owner and an entrepreneur. So
you know what else it is, Gavin? It's just being a questioner. I took Gretchen Rubin's 4 Tendencies quiz before I had her on my show, and obviously, what archetype was I out of the 4? I don't even remember the other 3, but I was through and through a questioner. I question everything. I question authority. I question every single rule, like that is any rule that is imposed upon me. And when I go somewhere, like I question it. I want to do the opposite.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess that's probably what's led you into doing exactly what you do right now, and having the podcast. It's like, I think what comes with being a questioner of authority and rules is also curiosity, in that you're just curious to learn, curious to grow, which being a podcast host is the perfect way to do it. Right?
Yeah, I'm a questioner in many senses. In just the questioning of authority, which is completely different than the questioning of the curiosity questioning that you hear on my podcast and that you hear from me when I'm just out and about having a normal conversation with somebody. Those are very different things. But like I said, through and through a questioner. And I also question myself. I really do. I question the format of my podcast and the dynamic of it every single week. like I'm thinking like Jordan, isn't it so weird? Like you sit there and you literally manufacture a conversation. Like it's not even like it's not a normal conversation. I think you can attest to that. Like it's a different dynamic. Even if it sounds like a normal conversation and your listeners are like, oh, it sounds like you're just having a coffee shop conversation, or it's different than that. In no other conversation in life are you coming prepared with notes.
Totally.
It's a weird thing. And I question, like, isn't the format of that so weird? Like, if people 1,000 years ago were to, or 2,000, 10,000 years ago were to like hear this, just the whole dynamic would be so alien to them. Like just the way that people talk to each other, it would be so weird to them. It's really hard to explain, impossible to explain, but I grasp what I'm saying up here. But like I said, hard to explain.
I get you.
Yeah.
I think you're totally right. Like,
it's a weird thing.
For those of you that are actually watching, I have 2 pages of notes for this conversation. Now, if I was going for a beer with Jordan, probably wouldn't be bringing 2 pages of notes.
Right. That's why people can't understand why I can't like talk to people at a bar. I mean, I can talk to people outside a bar and outside my podcast. It's just, I mean, the bar is way too loud and my brain goes haywire. Totally. But people don't understand like why. And my mom is like, you can talk to anyone. You can do your conversation skills are amazing. I'm like, Mom, I don't have 2 pages of notes in front of me when I'm out and about. Like you forget, you don't see behind the scenes the notes right on my desk.
Yeah, the researching of
it's cheating. And the research beforehand. I don't research the people at the bar. I don't know who's going to even be there. Otherwise, I might research.
So let's carry on that conversation of the questioning, and specifically the curiosity questioning of the podcast, because one of the big things, objections that I hear a lot of people telling me when I tell them to start creating content is oftentimes they might say things like, I suck at writing, so I'm not going to blog, or I don't want to be on video. Like I feel awkward on video, so I'm not going to do video. And podcasting, I think, is an interesting one. And I think everybody, maybe not well, everybody to some extent has the ability to have a conversation with someone and to ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
So for you starting your podcast, what did that look like? Was there a moment where you're like, I'm going to start a podcast? Or
nah.
How did it look
like?
like?
No, I just did it.
So was that a case of you saw the podcasting medium and you were like, that looks cool, or was there an interview, someone you wanted to have a conversation?
Yeah, no, I the former. I very much did it because of social proof, really.
Yeah,
thought I should.
And how does the podcast play a part in your actual business now?
Well, I have a podcast production company, and I mean, I'm a real practitioner. I'm constantly getting leads through my podcast, through my free offering of my podcasting course, which is really awesome, by the way. And so many people, I feel like 75% of the podcasts I go on, they're like, Jordan, you're the only reason I started this podcast, your course, blah, 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 blah. And it's really cool. And so I'm a real practitioner. Just, a lot of, there's podcast production companies that just get into podcast production because, it's a cool, hip new thing. And, it's a good business model right now. And they don't drink their own champagne. They don't have a podcast. Like, it's weird. It's a really weird thing. Somebody posted recently. It's crazy how many marketing agencies don't implement for themselves things they do for their clients.
Dude, tell me about it. We are a Facebook ad agency. We run ads for clients, and the number of other agencies that do the same thing that don't have the very basics in place, like a Facebook pixel on their own website and things. And
Oh my God.
oh dear,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
That's funny.
it's a big thing. It's a big thing, but I put that down to probably. Well, I'm not gonna sidetrack this conversation. I was gonna say people that sell how to be an ad agency courses and teach people how to be an ad agency who don't actually know what they're doing,
Right.
which
But
is probably a big thing in your space as well.
yeah, I mean, that's honestly your space. The problem's worse.
Mm,
And that post that I saw was referring to like ad agencies.
yeah.
But it definitely exists in my world as well.
So let's talk about that funnel then. So to give the listeners an understanding of for so who I'm speaking to here is somebody that maybe either has a podcast or is thinking about creating a podcast or actually is creating content in another medium, and maybe they're not getting the leads, they're not getting the customers from that podcast that they want to. So your funnel, let's say, let and correct me if I'm wrong, is podcast. People find your podcast, listen to your podcast, you offer a free course, they fill in their information, they
Hmm.
do the free course, and then you sell them on to a product, whatever that might be. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, look, I mean, I, I'll just explain it. That a lot of people post content on LinkedIn, really hard to stand out there. People forget what you posted the second they scroll by it. The second after they like it, it's gone. Doesn't really matter. Doesn't really move the needle. Doesn't really set you apart. And so, I've just over the past 2 years, 2.5 years, really focused on getting people off of LinkedIn and onto my podcast. Now it's a very slow process, it really is. But I've been focusing on that. And then at the appropriate time, actually 13 months ago, I implemented, started baking lead magnet ad reads into the intro, mid-roll, and outro of my podcast. And if you want to hear good examples of that, I mean, you can listen to Growth Mindset University. Here's the thing, not every episode is going to have it though, because I'm constantly changing it up. Sometimes it's like in a different place every time, so as to not saturate the stimuli. You think of Joe Rogan's podcast, the first 7 minutes are ads. I really don't know anyone that listens to those ads and doesn't skip by it. So that is saturated stimuli. It's predictable. I like predictability in my business, like we were talking earlier, but to other people, like to be unpredictable. I don't want to be predictable in that sense. But there's that, and yeah, if you want to hear good examples, there's our client, the top 1%, Dr. Trevor Blattner. You'll hear some lead magnet ad reads there. The Mind Vibe podcast by Danielle Grant. This is not a client, but Andy Storch of the Talent Development Hot Seat he does such a good job with his lead magnet ad reads, and it does wonders for his business. It really does. So yeah, that's really how it works. And I engage people in conversations. Just about everyone who enrolls in my free course, How to Become a Rockstar Podcaster, they get a personal email from me. Short little thing, not automated at all. And I mean, some people think it's funny. Like I've had people like ask me, like, is this you? I'm like, yeah. So, because sometimes it'll come in, I'll just be looking at my email and a sign up will come in. I'll just like take care of it like 1 second after it comes in. And so obviously it seems automated. So sometimes I'll be like, P.S. This is like actually me.
This is actually me. This is not actually me saying that on an automated.
Yeah. And obviously, like, I mean, delusion and success cannot coexist. And so obviously I'm not engaging everyone in sales conversations. That would be delusional to make an offer to everyone. I don't make offers to everyone. I don't look to get on the phone and have a conversation with everyone. It's honestly like they're few and far between. Like it's just not appropriate a lot of the time. But then again, a lot of the time I am engaging them, and we we're emailing, and get on the phone if appropriate.
I think that's key, if
Yeah.
appropriate.
Yeah.
You've got your podcast, you've got the lead magnet, which, by the way, I think that little sentence that you said there about the saturated stimuli is key. That's a golden piece of, I was going to say a golden piece of nugget. That doesn't make sense. That is a golden nugget bit of information there in terms of being a pattern interrupt.
Yeah, it's just psychology.
Exactly. Nobody listens to that first 7 minutes of Joe Rogan's podcast. And when you think of the traditional podcast of maybe an ad at the beginning, ad at the end, pop it in somewhere random. I love that. It's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, it goes. You can find principles too of this in. I mean, Robert Greene talks about this a little bit in the 48 Laws of Power, but you can also I actually wrote. I do like once a month a private, like only to my clients, an email. And I actually wrote about this, but I can't remember the laws of power. But in the Art of War, it's which I have right here. Don't chart out your moves. Don't plot out your next moves for all to see. I mean, because then your enemy can prepare a defense against you. In this case, it's a little bit less extreme. There's no enemy here, obviously, but and there's no defense really. I mean, there is. Look, think about it this way: if you're predictable and you're put in the same spot every episode, then your listener can prepare a defense against that. What is the defense? They know to skip right through it.
Yeah, totally. That's key. It's a marketing thing that we need to take into everything we do. It's how can we be a pattern interrupt as an ad, as a lead magnet,
right?
How we make the lead magnet offer, all of these things. So that's a great point. I want to touch on the LinkedIn side of things, because that's where I found you. That's where I've been following you, and where I want to go with this is we've talked about your podcast and how that plays a part of your business, and you touched upon how you used LinkedIn to get your podcast out there. Like what I've just said is that's how I found you, and what I found particularly impressive about you is two things. First of all, is your process in how you package up that podcast to promote it. And second of all, the level of engagement that you get when you do that. Why I think this is impressive is, one, you're taking your big piece of podcast, big piece of podcast, your podcast. In this case, my one would be 40 minutes, 45 minutes or so. And obviously, you don't want to just post that massive piece of content onto LinkedIn. So what you're doing is you're chunking that down into shorter segments, or you're turning it into a PDF, or you're turning it into a quote image or a text, a piece of text. So what I want to ask is, for the people that are listening, again, that are maybe creating they're creating content, maybe, and what I'd call this is pillar content. So maybe a longer YouTube video, a longer podcast, a blog, let's say. What's your particular process, if you have one, on taking that podcast and chunking it down into pieces of smaller content that then works well in a LinkedIn environment?
Yeah, well, first, thank you. And I mean, I don't do teasers on LinkedIn. I don't really do that. I deliver the main value of the episode to the platform a lot of the time, and it's so much so it's almost I wonder, why would someone even need to listen to this episode after I posted this? You know what I mean? Especially when I create a mini book about the episode. I with Seth Godin, 9 Ways to Transform Education for the Better. I mean, there's really not much in there in that document that is not covered on the everything in that document is really covered on the podcast that I posted. 4 ways how to spot a narcissist with Robert Greene, like that document that I posted many months ago. And then, yeah, I mean, look, the videos, the images, I mean, look, I haven't really, I mean, I have a team around me. I obviously trained everyone how to do it my way, but I mean, I haven't been involved in this, in the actual creation of this stuff for a year, man. Like I've really optimized things. But
awesome.
yeah, we're really creating, we're creating at least one video from every single episode, as well as a quote card and sometimes a mini book. I call them a document, the PDFs, really aesthetic mini book. Yeah.
Yeah. So what does that look like then for, I'm trying to think of somebody here who's creating the podcast and wants to build an audience on Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Have you designed your team or created a process within your team where you just deliver the audio, for example, and
Exactly.
they do it all? Or do you say, I really like this key point in this podcast. Can we turn that into?
No, I trust them. I've taught them what to search for too, and in the training videos. So I trust them. It's pretty rare, but sometimes I'll be like, oh, I want to make a clip out of this. Pretty rare though. So yeah, I very much leave it to them. And I mean, look, it's what my company does. I do it for me. I do it for our clients, and yeah.
I think the trust point is key there. There's a bit of a tangent here, but we have having the conversation about everybody working from home right now, and some businesses trying to go back and get their staff back into the office as opposed to working from home, and people don't want to go back to the office because they enjoy the work from home thing, but the employees have this problem because they want people in the office from a control perspective, and I'm like, you just have a trust problem.
Right. That's huge, man. I'm going to take that with me. That's the problem.
It's a trust problem because, and the trust problem, if you think back, it's like, well, are you hiring the wrong people then? Because you don't trust them, and therefore you've got a recruitment issue. You've got a recruitment problem, or do you not trust them because your processes suck, and you can't?
Right.
You've not got the things that you need to give those employees.
Yeah.
To trust them.
Yeah, I may have these elements of complete control narcissist to me, but my processes are good enough for me to just not have to be a total like vulture, a hawk. Like I don't have to watch them. I really don't, and I don't want to. Yeah, dude. I mean, and the work is just as good, if not. I think it's better than me doing it on my own. I really do. I think they do a better job than me, which is great. It's all about the processes. Yeah, if you don't trust them, then maybe your processes suck.
Exactly.
Your standard operating procedures are non-existent. They just suck. I mean, the way I do it, pretty simple. Do a screen recording, talk over it, and then create a checklist. Step by step. It's so foolproof, it's not even funny. I don't know what more you can do. And then I only started creating this last week. I'm bolstering it even more in IFTTT protocol handbook, and if this, then that handbook. And it's almost like a book at this point. There's probably like 3,000 words. Like every scenario that could possibly come up, if this happens, then do that. Super, super simple stuff, man.
Yeah. I think, and it's key. You got trust in your team, and you got trust in your processes, which builds on really nicely from last week's episode when we had Dennis Yu on. Don't know if you're familiar with Dennis, but Dennis is like the checklist man. Like every single thing. He's got a master document of every single process that goes in their business. That's a digital marketing agency. And what's cool about his agency is they work with young people to deliver on their enterprise size clients. So you've got young people spending, tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in advertising spend because he trusts the process which is key, which is awesome. And so for everybody listening, if you don't see yourself as a podcaster, or you don't see yourself as a YouTuber or whatever it is, but you're creating something, you need to start looking at how can you create a process around that, so you can become the person that focuses on creating and have the team or whoever it is actually turning that into something that's valuable for the likes of LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, etc. So that's awesome. Now, what we're going to do, Jordan, is it's time to play a game.
Good.
You ready? Let's do it.
It's time for the game round. It's like the Highland Games, but on a podcast.
That's good.
So, the 5-second rule is the game we're going to play. Have you ever played it before?
Probably not in this form.
No, it's definitely not the dropping food on the floor. And
Right, that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
No, it's not that. Yeah, I'm going to ask you to drop 10 pieces of food on the floor. No. So the rules are simple. I have 10 statements that I'm going to read out, and you have 5 seconds to answer them. So those things might be, an example might be something like, name 3 types of ice cream, and you have to say chocolate, strawberry, vanilla within the 5 seconds. This is definitely the best way for the listeners to get to know who you are, because we get to see how do you react under stress. We get to see how do you react if you're doing well or not. So I've got 10 statements here. I'm going to time you every time after I finish the statement. The timer starts. You've got 5 seconds. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Let's do this. Name 3 kinds of weather.
Rain, sun, snow.
Boom. Done. Name 3 things you can see on the sky, or in the sky, I should say.
Clouds, sun, stars.
Nice. Name 3 things that are black.
This chair I'm looking at, my bedspread, and this TV.
Oh, you are 0.04 away from there. Name
Oh.
3 things that are red. Time is up. Time is up.
I don't.
The first
My
one.
watch. Part of it.
Name 3 things that are white.
The StreamYard background here, the Amazon logo I'm looking at, and
Time out.
oh,
Lucky man. Name 3 means of transportation.
car, bus, train.
Nice. Name 3 things you can find in your bathroom.
Tweezers, razor, and soap. Ooh.
Oh, you didn't get it.
Oh, I knew that one was so close.
Name 3 things you can find in your bedroom.
Bed, pillow, towel.
Nice. Name 3 things that you can find in your kitchen.
Knife, fork, spoon.
Nice. And the final one, name 3 words that start with the letter E.
Elephant, egg.
Oh, time. That's it.
That's harder than I thought, man. I know people are probably like, what is wrong with this guy? But geez.
You're pretty cool there. Some people get like really, really worked up, but you're pretty chill. 6 out of 4
one got me.
It's respectable. It's respectable, I'll say.
Yeah.
Nice one, man. It is time now for the rapid fire round.
Mm-hmm.
Time for the rapid fire round. 10 questions, 10 answers, no context. Are you ready?
So the rules are simple. I'm going to read out 10 questions. You've got to give me an answer. You cannot give me any context to that answer. First one is, what's your favorite book?
The Subtle Art of You Know What.
Nice. Mark Manson. Favorite word?
Grateful.
Good choice. What is your most hated food?
Mushrooms, yeah.
Biggest pet peeve, either business or personal?
Oh, humble bragging.
That's
on social.
That is a good one. What was your dream job as a child?
Policeman, or when I was 4, garbage man, because I went to ride on the side. Oh, I gave context.
Yeah, there we go. Favorite genre of music?
Classic rock, yeah.
Nice. Drink of choice?
Water.
Nice. Are you a morning or a night person?
Morning.
Thought you'd be a morning. Would you rather cuddle a baby panda or a baby penguin?
Panda.
Nice. And final question is, what is one parting piece of advice you'd like to give the listeners?
Social selling is a myth. Do outreach.
Interesting.
Don't wait. It's
to
the first thing that we said. Don't wait, hoping for people to come to you. Stop relying on that.
So reach out to people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I read a post actually that you did on LinkedIn. I will give I'll give some context as to what I think you mean here, and you can reply to that. So we get around the game rules. As you said, like, you're on LinkedIn, you're doing outreach. The difference between your outreach and the spammy outreach that people often relate to LinkedIn is you never actually said what what the actual difference is, but you're doing research. You're looking at what can you give that person? How can you provide value to that person? And the people are then responding to you going, that's amazing. That's the best message I've ever had. So
here's the most recent one I got, right? He was like, oh my God, wow, you do your homework. I get 30 to 50 cold outreach messages per day. And you're the first person I've shared my booking link with in months. This is on the usual. This is on the regular. It just takes a little more effort. It really does.
Yeah. And I think the lesson that I want everybody to take from that is it's not that outreach is bad. It's not that messaging people on LinkedIn is bad. It's bad if you do a bad job.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
People say, oh, you're not supposed to selling in the LinkedIn DMs is dead. You're not supposed to do that. Pitching's dead. It's dangerous advice.
It is. It is.
I had to learn the hard way.
Outreach is good if you can do it right.
Mm-hmm.
That's the key. Wow, Jordan, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah,
chatting to you. It's been really fun. It's a conversation I've been looking forward to having ever since I did some outreach to you on LinkedIn. And yeah, I just really enjoy some of the things that you've spoken about here. I've got some notes here, and some of the things that I want people to take away is this idea of, first of all, designing a life. Think about how, like, what do you want your life to look like? How can you design around that? Be a questioner, question things, be curious. And I think the concept of, look at where there's saturated stimuli in your market, in your audience, in everything that you're doing, and how can you be a pattern interrupt, or just some of the things I've taken from that. So I appreciate you taking the time, Jordan, to come on and jump on this. Tell everybody where they can listen to your podcast, learn more about your business and what you do.
First off, Gavin, I mean, man, I enjoyed my time with you as well. You run a sharp, tight, good show, man. You really do. The quality is very high. And yeah, I mean, as for my show, Growth Mindset University, people know where to find podcasts.
Awesome, folks. Go and give it a listen. You will enjoy it. If you enjoyed this episode of the podcast, you can learn more about Jordan and the things that we've spoken about over at mrgavinbell.com/podcast. And if you enjoyed this show, take a little screenshot of your phone and tag me and Jordan in it and share it on whatever platform you want, Instagram stories, and let us know what's the big takeaway that you took from this show. That would be awesome. And as always, if you enjoyed the show, hit subscribe, do all those fun things, and we'll see you very, very soon. That's a wrap on the podcast. We are still live. Awesome, folks. We had Andrew, Matthew, Annabelle, Killian commenting. Right, folks, thank you so much for jumping in. Jordan, stick around. I'm going to hit end to this broadcast.
Mm-hmm.
And as always, folks, if you listened on the replay, thanks for being here. As you know, drop a comment, #replay. And we'll see you all very, very soon.